Good morning. Thank you so very much for having me here. You are continuing to represent a living legacy of leadership, love, and community. You've built bridges between generations and modeled what it means to raise excellence with intention, and I am simply delighted to be here with you today. I want to talk about something it seems many of us could use right now, and that is grounding. As I read and watch and discuss, I feel like many people are feeling a bit untethered or lacking a feeling of being grounded. So I call this talk Grounded Greatness, because apparently crashing out while being functional didn't test well with audiences. Go figure. Thank you for being present. I want to begin with a question. If you never got the outcomes you were seeking, would you still be happy with the journey? If you never got the outcomes you were seeking, would you still be happy with the journey? I ask myself that often when I'm chasing an outcome, like many of us do. Healthy kids, closing a deal, thriving business, a promotion, influence, being a baddie in your field. What I'm trying to gauge is if I'm cool with my process despite the outcome. Do I like who I'm being on the road to achieving, and will I have any regret if the outcome is not realized? It gives me much needed pause to reflect and assess. When we're not grounded in ourselves, it's easy to take paths we don't mean in an effort to get the outcomes. The problem becomes that the feelings of achieving the outcome becomes the temporary high. We don't like what we did to get there. In order for us to really be good with the journey, it is to ensure that the ground we are planting on is fertile. We are the ground. There are two more questions that I would like you to hold. The first is, where did the want for the outcomes we're seeking or the seeds we're planting come from? When I was in high school, I was really good at math. Naturally, the adults in my life said, you should go into finance or accounting. You'll make good money. You'll have a stable job. So without any idea of what a day in the life of a finance or accounting person looked like, I majored in finance and accounting, got the good job, and made good money. But what no one told me is that being good at something does not mean that it's good for you. The seed planted was not on fertile ground. The seed is neither good nor bad. It's where we're planting it that decides if it thrives. Every few years, I'd switch companies in search of something I felt was missing. I just couldn't seem to settle in. I later learned that I was not grounded in my guiding principles. I was planted in someone else's. The second question that I'd like you to hold is, where did our process of planting the seed come from? The culture of finance was rigid and routine, two things that do not align with who I am. So what does it mean to be grounded? When we're grounded, we have clarity around our guiding principles. We can challenge our mental chatter and faulty beliefs and not let them have their way with us. We're not easily moved by external forces, and this will make some uncomfortable. Grounded is when our roots run deep enough to hold us steady as the winds of life blow, because the foundation is fertile. But let me tell you, I didn't always know what that felt like. Growing up as the good girl and the rule follower, I was trained to look for validation, to ask, am I doing it right? Is this okay? It's funny to hear people say today things like, you always seem so put together. First, no. Second, I am clear and I am grounded, but that does not come with perfection or guaranteed success, and that was never the goal. Think back to your childhood. What was applauded in your community from your guardians, school, religion, and peer groups? Maybe it was cleaning your plate or getting straight A's, saying yes, ma'am, or no, sir, choosing a respectable career, being appropriate. Now, think about a time when someone stopped to ask you along the way if those things aligned with who you were or if they were important to you. Hard to recall, right? Maybe it never happened. Because from birth, we're told what's good, what's bad, what's better, what's worse, but rarely were we asked what we thought. Much of what was handed to us was done in love and a hope that we would thrive. Many of the beliefs that we inherited aren't inherently true, or at least they're not ours. I grew up hearing things like, if you work hard, people will notice. You have to be strong. If it's meant to be, it'll happen. Those sound good, don't they? But they are not always fertile ground, because they can set us up to operate in a process that is not our own by adopting concepts we do not believe. Maybe we've never agreed that we always had to be strong and believed in leaving space for vulnerability. Or we recognize that undesirable things sometimes just happen in life. After graduating from college, I worked in finance for Fortune 100s, met a man on Martha's Vineyard, got married, bought a house, had 2 scrumptious children, ended up in a high visibility job in commercial real estate, and had lots of great friend groups. For a while, my life looked picture perfect. But underneath it all, I had a persistent ache, a nagging feeling of unfulfillment that I could not shake. At first, I thought I had a gratitude problem, so I did all the self-help activities that I knew to do. And that's when I realized I needed to look at my ground, my foundation. That's actually the cleaned up version. I took a deep dive. I flipped the apple cart upside down, looking at all aspects of my life: aesthetic, relational, emotional, parental, professional. They needed examining. It was like looking for the grasshopper in your house, when you think you've caught it or you think you found it, and there's one more place to look. A fertile foundation requires reflection, intention, and then action. Reflection often comes after feedback, and feedback comes in many forms. Failure is feedback: body language, feelings, depression, prickliness, and so on. We live in a do-you culture, one that often confuses confidence with defensiveness. Someone offers feedback and we immediately label them a foe. But what if that feedback is actually fertilizer, meant to help us thrive? It at least is something to consider for our own growth. And isn't growth the goal? Thriving requires nourishment, not just the sunlight, which means sometimes the growth happens in the shade. Let's talk about how we can cultivate a fertile foundation, how we can nourish the flourish. I love a good rhyme or alliteration. Here are 5 ways. Number 1, manage your mental chatter. How many people know what's going to happen in the next 20 seconds? The next 10? The next 5? No one, right? Then the question becomes, if we just admitted that every moment from this moment forward is a figment of our imagination, then why do we make up the negative story? Why do we borrow worry from the future, bring it to our present at such a high cost of our right now? Studies continue to show that 85% of our mental chatter is negative. Striving for the balance to the end of the story is worth your time. Number 2, live in alignment. Be authentic, they said. Sure, but they did not tell us how. I fully believe that it begins with an understanding of who we are. The relentless feeling of unfulfillment in my early years was due to a misalignment with my guiding principles, starting with my core values, or in other words, a lack of authenticity. Thriving begins when your value standards, beliefs, and priorities are in alignment. Values are the North Star of our guiding principles. They are the coordinates in what I call our TPS, or our truth positioning system. Once we've identified our preferred way of existence through our values, we align our beliefs, standards, and priorities. Think quickly of a pet peeve that you have. Something that evokes a visceral emotional response from you. It could be someone telling you a lie, judging another, taking credit for your work, or showing disrespect. If we had time, I'd ask each of you to tell me what came to mind. And while there would be some shared, most would be different. And why is that? I believe on the other side of every pet peeve is a value. And when our foundational values are confronted, we experience emotional reactions to what I call value confrontations. The reason it used to bother me so when I held the door and a person didn't say thank you is because I value consideration. Or when a group of people were purposely leaving someone out to be hurtful, it's because I value connectedness. I have a full understanding now of my top core values, and I accept that not everyone shares them. This is critical to a fertile foundation as it allows you to know what will thrive in your life and what won't, and where you will thrive and where you will not. Number 3, liberate your life from labels. Our label chasing often causes us to abandon ourselves for the hope of being a certain way. Grow through, don't just go through. Why me is sometimes a question that gets asked when people experience various outcomes, sometimes positive outcomes, but mostly undesired ones. Flourishing is not an absence of struggle. It's using adversity as a fertilizer. Think about it. The soil that tried to bury you is the same soil that made you bloom. You've heard it before. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this doing for me? And number 5, sustain through intention and activation. There's a lot of noise in our world, especially now, that tries to root itself in our being or our ground. Much of it has us looking outward instead of inward. And there are no shortage of inputs on what we should do, how we should feel, and where we should be. However, where we have attention, there goes our intention, which leads to our activation. Growth is a process, not a performance. To grow, you must sever ties with external judgment. Do the embarrassing thing. Try and fail. Let the labels fall where they may. A good friend of mine used to say, no one cares what you're trying to do if you're not trying to do much. Our strive for normalcy keeps us squarely on the bell curve. And finally, friends, you may have been labeled, but you are not limited. You may be discovering yourself, but you are not behind. You may be afraid, but you can develop audacity. You may have been overlooked, but you are still becoming. You may have paused, but that doesn't mean you can't persist. You may have fallen, but you can move forward. Because when you are grounded, you don't have to chase, you will attract. You don't have to prove, you will embody. You don't have to hustle for worth, you walk in it. And yes, life will test your roots, and the wind will blow. The rain will come, and the soil will shift beneath your feet, but you were built for this. So stand firm, stay steady, stay grounded in your guiding principles, and when you choose to live from your ground, not your grind, you don't just grow, you become greatness itself. And that, my friends, is grounded greatness. Thank you. I'm Monica Koss.